All right, welcome back to the podcast. We're starting off today with a unique question in the flavor of a would you rather. And the three choices are, would you rather live in the 80s, the 90s, or the 2000s? That obviously means from 80 to 89 and from 91-ish to 99, and then from 2000 to 2009 or 2010. So that's the block, the decades, if you will, that you have to choose to live in. So we will look to James or Vicky for that, if they're wanting to answer first. They're thinking. Vicky, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm thinking the 90s. I feel like it was a happy decade. Not perfect, but there was some good stuff. I was a kid in the 90s, so I have some good nostalgia based on that time.
Yeah. I don't know, like thinking back on those decades and such, I'm thinking like, because remember, to me, the 90s, like at the end, kind of started going like darker, like getting more flat. And that's why I'm avoiding like the early 2000s too. That's why I would say out of the three.
Out of the 2000s as well.
That's why out of the three, I'm thinking the 80s. Because at the time, it's like everything seemed to be like on the upswing. Everything seemed so positive.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, even look at like the movies we're covering, a lot of it is kind of like fantasy, sci-fi. You know, these images are like yeah, there's hard stuff here, but there's like this smothering of like, look, there's more hope. There's like better things out there. You can go in these good directions. And that was kind of like the 80s. Everything was like, think about like all the neon and everything that came out of the 80s, where it's like everything's bright and happier. Dude, there's opportunity out there.
Maybe it's because of where I lived overseas, because the 90s is when the Soviet Union fell apart. So that's kind of a subliminal thing there for me.
Okay. So I think about it from this direction of computers and technology.
Yeah.
So I look at what we have today, and it's insanity how I think the struggle for me is because I teach high schoolers, and before that I taught middle schoolers, and Vicky teaches fifth graders. Mm-hmm. Those kids have never grown up in a world without a cell phone or internet or Wi-Fi or any of those various technologies readily available. I'm in that unique generation, and y'all are, where we grew up without cell phones, Wi-Fi, internet.
Right.
That became a thing in the early 2000s, where everyone started to get higher speed internet than just dial up.
Yeah.
And so you look at how far we've come in the last 22 years since 2000. We've come a long way. Like we have, you walk in a building, you walk in a coffee shop, you walk in your workplace, you have access to Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Here's the Wi-Fi password.
Right. Here's the Wi-Fi password, or hey, you're a member of staff. Here's our building's Wi-Fi for you to access.
Yep.
And it's weird if you don't have it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's unusual if a place of business does not have a Wi-Fi system in place for customers.
Or the other thing is like, if you're not on this app, why aren't you on this app? You don't have one of these accounts?
Right.
And it's kind of like, no.
Yeah.
But you're looked at weird for not having it.
Well, and I think it's interesting when you look
get
here, like we live in Fort Morgan. It's in the county. It's a smaller city, town of about 12,000, 13,000 on a good day. Mm-hmm. And there is not a lot of that app-related kind of thing here. Mm-hmm. Now, you go to Denver, you go to any bigger city, then, you're going to need to have an app to access something. Open Table, or, your the park app like we used to.
And it's like an hour drive away, too. It's like, boom.
Yeah, and it's crazy how much it's different.
Yeah, because I think it's the idea of accessibility and how challenging accessibility in a large city can be when you used to have parking meters, but those parking meters would break, and then they installed credit card readers, and then those credit card readers were getting jinked. And so there's always this kind of like weird sense of the separation between rural and big city.
Yep.
And I think if you talk about like growing up in the 80s and the 90s, probably growing up in the rural part of the country would have been very different from even our experiences growing up in larger cities. And that's not to say it's like bad or backwards, or it would have been like a one-horse town. That's not anywhere where that's being said, but it would be a different experience growing up in a small town in the 80s or the 90s. Yeah. Because you wouldn't have everything that you had in your big town. So for me, I enjoyed the simplicity of technology in the 90s.
Yeah.
We grew up with a computer in the house.
Oregon Trail.
Like you didn't need to get like a graphics card, or you just had your computer and you played games. And towards the 2000s is when gaming started to pick up speed, and when you started to really have to get a good computer to do it. And then we started getting and everything. So it was just like this.
Well, and then their trends started changing. Where it's like people sat more in front of their computers versus in front of their TV too.
Yep. And then you start getting laptops and everything else. So I feel like the 90s technology-wise was a sweet spot where it wasn't too overwhelming, where you didn't have social media invading your life and everything just being so oppressively busy and doom scrolling and all of that. Versus the 80s, which was very much gaming in its infancy, and it was still growing, and you didn't have a gaming PC. You had
remember when you had to come and like hang out at each other's house to play games versus each other?
Yep. You had to have your
and
consoles.
Mario Kart became like a brutal force. Everybody's looking at the screen together, like don't look at my screen, and you're shoving somebody away.
But that was life, and it's interesting to kind of sit back and look at it now, where you can play like Among Us on your phone with like 20 other players.
That's crazy.
And you can play multiplayer games on your phone with 20 other players with Wi-Fi or even just 5G.
Yeah.
Like it's the way the amount of movement and the amount of progress we've made is great, but it is also, as a guy and as people who have grown up outside of that bubble where that exists.
Yeah.
I do, and this is going to sound really I don't know what the word is, like Luddite or whatever, but I wish for a simpler time.
Yeah.
Like I love having the power of a computer processor in my hand.
Oh yeah, it's like these phones are amazing things, but
also
it's kind of like
it's so immediate. Like there's no, like, if I'm like, I wonder who won the World Series in 1945.
Yeah.
I can go, hey Google, who won the 1940s World Series? And
Whereas
Google
when I
will
was a
tell me.
kid, I was looking through encyclopedias to try to find
you had to go
answers.
find that information, or maybe your buddy was a baseball expert.
Yeah.
And you call him and be like, hey, do you remember this? Oh yeah, man, it was them and this, and here's that and all that, and here's the stats, and hey, I got the baseball cards. You want to come hang out and look at them? Yeah, it'd be awesome. We'll go do that.
Yep.
So it's the reason why we're talking about this is because the movie we're about to talk about is another 80s movie.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is if we were to take a step even further back and go, okay, we want to grow up in the 80s or the 90s. Were our movies as good as we think they were? And the current the looks on your faces. The current measurement on the 80s movies that we've watched has been no.
Yeah, no.
They're not all.
Well, I mean, I would say like their messages and stuff they're
Yeah.
trying to get across.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Yeah.
But the movies themselves, oh man, this is some dumpster fire.
Yeah,
The past two were rough.
Yeah.
But I still say Neverending Story, Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Those were good. Those were high
good.
points.
I just want to defend those two.
Yeah. So we're gonna. So that's something as listeners. If you're wondering, if you're like, oh man, I love the 80s. Well, okay, do you have to take the 80s in whole? Like you got to take it all. It's all or nothing. So you can't have your 80s culture in your 90s movies.
Yeah, no.
You got to take the 80s fashion, the 80s movies, the 80s entertainment, the 80s superheroes, the 80s superstars, the 80s entertainment. All of that is in the mix, and in some ways, I don't know if I could handle it. I think the 90s was that sweet spot because we had good television, we had good Saturday morning cartoons, we had pretty solid movies, and I think if we went back and we watched some 90s movies, but
we would find some dumpster fires in there.
Sure we would.
I'm just saying, I'm a big fan of a lot of 80s music, so that's probably why it's like I'm good with
Gotcha.
this music. Like Genesis was at its high points. I'm kind of like,
I feel like it's starting to come back too. Like some of the modern stuff, I'm hearing bits of the 80s coming back in.
Yep.
Circling back.
So that's something we may just kind of revisit as we walk through our movie for this week, which is The Explorers, starring Ethan Hawke in his first ever film debut, River Phoenix in his first ever film debut, and Jason Presson in his only real big movie debut. Actually, no, he was in Gremlins too.
Yeah, he was in Gremlins.
And then he just kind of vanishes out of the movie scene in 1997. So an interesting kind of conversation as we move forward. This movie starts great, and then we're going to talk about how things kind of go wrong.
Yeah, it just, woo.
Yeah. Welcome. Get ready for the oof. Welcome to Nerds by Screenlight. My name is Aaron.
I'm James.
And Vicky.
And here we go.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. All I really need for you to do is just please.
I can sell.
Talk to me. Talk nerdy to me.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. Hopefully you endured that 5 minutes of brutality of the experience of what it was like to be in the 80s and the 90s and now the 2000s and now the 2020s.
Because I have a feeling we should probably go back and revisit that and probably talk a little more especially when we start doing 90s movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that'll be good. And I think I'm kind of happy where we're doing this weird kind of like we're moving through the 80s in a way. Have you noticed this in our
Right.
trend right now?
Yeah.
It's like we're winding our way through the 80s. Like, when are we going to start hitting some of the garbage that was the 90s? And then
Right.
as we go further and get closer and closer, because we really haven't done anything that's like too, what do you say, current?
Yeah.
Would be the word for it. Like, we haven't touched on anything too current yet, except for the Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters movie. We did talk about
that's true.
that. But I mean, again, that dragged us back to the 80s because he's talking about Ghostbusters 1, and
There's some nostalgia from the
don't
80s
want to
there
touch
for sure.
Ghostbusters 2, but we kind of did. But whatever.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for the 80s movies. And so it's a movie today that we watched last night is The Explorers. And it's Ethan Hawke, River Phoenix, and Jason Preston
Yep.
as young actors. And this is something, the movie starts out fantastic. Like, we
Yeah.
get some good character introductions. I think we all agreed that River Phoenix is the best part of this movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
the River Phoenix is the best part of this movie. It is, he, as a child actor,
Yeah.
like, I would say, just watch this movie. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say that. Watch this movie and look at the performance he puts on as a child actor. It is amazing.
It's
like
like an
he's into
adult-
that character.
It's like an adult in a child's body, or like an adult scientist in a child's body.
Yeah.
I love this kid.
Yeah. Well, and so the nice thing is for him is he stays in character throughout the
Yeah.
whole movie.
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
there's no, like, he doesn't break it. He doesn't kind of like start to act a different way. He commits to that role of being the nerdy scientist kid.
Yep.
And he just continues to rock it. It does help that whoever did the costumes for this movie like got him on point.
Yes.
He is always dressed either like a sweater vest and a tie,
Yeah.
or he's dressed in like
A
suit,
button down,
suit
whatever.
coat with a white button down shirt, and he's
Shiny
got
shoes.
professional dress pants.
Yeah, even at the end when he wears that trench coat, it's on point with his character.
yeah,
It's kind of like, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
it makes sense to have that in the 80s. So we get an introduction to all our characters now of all three characters. So we get an introduction to our first one. I can't remember his, was it Mikey or something like that?
Ben is our main character.
Ben is our main
I
character.
didn't get his name either.
I should probably pull up the IMDb so I make sure, because I forget to call it by their
It's
name.
Ben, Wolfgang, and I can't remember the third Jason.
Is that the Junkyard Kid? What
yeah,
was
Junkyard
his
Kid.
name?
I can't remember his name for the
The guy
life of
who-
me.
That's how much his character and his actor.
Well, I mean, we have to, like, kind of like a side thing. This movie is loaded with 80s tropes.
Yes.
So everybody just get ready for that. It is loaded with
Yeah.
80s tropes. The characters are straight up 80s trope
So yeah,
characters.
we're introduced to Ben Crandall, and Ben is supposed to be our main character that we care the most about, and like
But you kind of don't.
You don't.
Yeah, you really
he's
don't.
okay.
like, this was the flaw in this movie.
You don't hate him.
It's just they failed to bring it together, really,
Yeah.
because like at the start it's like you don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the bullying was to try to get you to care.
Yeah, a little bit. It's
But-
like, oh no, this poor kid's getting beaten up, but it's kind of like,
right.
And you even have like our junkyard kid,
Mm-hmm.
Darren,
Yeah.
who jumps in there, and for what reason?
We're not really given a reason. Like
I
it
don't know why he
doesn't.
defends him from the bully.
I think my guess is what the movie is attempting to do is that Darren has been down this road, and like they don't like when he says, "Hey, stop it." He's like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, and so maybe he's been a victim of them before,
Yeah.
and he finally is.
Or I mean, there's that implications of his household. Remember,
Right.
he's our trope of the broken home child
Yeah.
out of the 80s.
yeah,
And so it's like, he talks about, like, when he's telling the others kind of like, this is
Yeah.
my home life, it's like, it's
Yeah.
my dad
yeah,
and my dad's girlfriend.
right,
Dad drinks beers a lot.
right,
Dad works like a low-level junkyard job.
right,
So it's kind of like they lay out all these implications of what this kid's life is.
Right.
And it's a very broken house.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, oof. I mean, that's an 80s trope. It's all
Yeah.
over the place. You always have that kid
Yeah.
that's from the rougher side of town, whatever.
Yeah.
And his character's that to the T. I mean,
Yeah.
he's basically almost like a meme of it, where it's
Right.
kind of, yeah, he's the perfect.
Well, but the thing is, they don't
Kid.
they don't connect that to the scene of the beating up of the bullies.
Yeah, they don't. And because we don't get connection to any of these characters. It's kind of like, flop, here we go.
Yeah. And I know what they're trying to do because they're trying to get the movie to movie as fast as it possibly can.
Yeah.
Because you don't there's that delicate line, right? You don't want to sit down and be stuck
Yeah.
in front loading all the exposition for the characters. Because then you're that's movies suffer from that where it's so tedious and you're just like, what is could you movie please? Could you
Yeah.
get to movieing?
Well, even our main character, like, it's weird. We get more connection to Wolfgang.
Yeah.
A side character.
Well, here's the thing.
And
I
here's
think
And
Why?
his family
right.
Yeah.
versus our main character and his
Because I think what we see is Wolfgang's family in action.
Yes.
We don't see Ben's family in action.
Nope.
Mom comes into the room to like turn the TV off.
War of the Worlds.
War of
yeah.
the Worlds, but there's very little engagement. I don't even think we see Ben's dad.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing him.
Yeah,
And if
I don't think we do either.
I didn't
no.
see him. But you have that like. So what the movie is trying to do is like, okay, well, here's Mom. She's like, oh, he stays up late watching movies.
Oh, he's
like,
writing a letter to his grandma.
Yeah,
And she's like, good.
Yeah.
That's all you get.
Yeah. And that was the end of it. And so it's this moment where when we get over to Wolfgang's family, we see his dad searching for the mouse stuff. You see all the kids throwing stuff, being active, mom's engaged.
We
mom's
thought it was a
talking.
daycare at first.
Right.
We go, oh, wait,
Yeah.
that's the family.
Yeah. But it was so well done because you're like, okay, what is happening? What's going on? I'm trying to figure this out. And you're asking questions as the movie's going in your head.
Mm-hmm.
That's, in my opinion, that's a sign of a good film because it's not going to just say, okay, here's the kids, here's the mom, here's the dad, boom, shakalaka, moving on.
Yep.
There is actual storytelling happening with Wolfgang's family, and you want to know more. So when
You also get. The mom shows that she cares even about random kids that show up her door.
Yeah.
Oh, here's some baklava. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, boom.
she
Like
was,
I don't even know who you are,
Right.
but you know what? Here's a treat.
Yeah, she is. Her and her and the dad are definitely stereotypically German.
Yeah.
like it's a little bit over the top. It's Alfred Cromwell. Who?
Oh no, James Cromwell.
James
is
Cromwell,
his
sorry,
name.
James Cromwell, whose big movie was in Babe. Like that was his big thing. If you remember James Cromwell, he's been in several.
Yeah, he's been
The
in
Green
lots of
Mile,
stuff.
right?
I think he was in the Green Mile
Yeah,
too.
he's a legit actor. Like this man is not. He's not a schluff guy. He's not phoning in his scenes. But it was so funny to see this guy being like, in the '80s, Cromwell was acting.
Yeah, he was playing the goofy German nerdy dad.
Has this gas mask thing on his
because
face.
he's trying to spray for the mice.
Son,
and
is
trying
that
to-
my thing of yours? No, Dad.
Yeah.
It's not. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's this, but you bought into it. So when Dad comes downstairs to find the mouse bombs, you're like, oh, I hope he doesn't find the things, and you're cheering on Wolfgang as he like distracts his dad. Hey, go look over there. I think I saw it over there.
Yeah.
That's involving. You get an understanding of that his dad is a bit of a doddering fool, that his dad's a bit of a space cadet sometimes, but he's very brilliant.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of lost. in the-
Because we do get the hints is like a lot of the technology that Wolfgang has
Is his
is from
dad's.
his dad.
Yeah. But his dad is so lost in everything else.
Yeah.
He doesn't keep track of any of it, which I'm sure means that his dad has probably other computers and everything else. Because
Yeah.
we don't see Dad's workspace. We see
Yeah, we don't.
Wolfgang's.
We see Wolfgang's and we
Yeah.
hear Wolfgang give the speech of how he's hooked into his dad's computers. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, okay, it's implied dad probably has his own computer set up somewhere elsewhere
Yeah.
that's more powerful.
But he's not tracking it like in a way to, like he's not. He doesn't have an inventory that he checks on the daily basis.
Yeah, no.
But I love. We talked about this as we watched the movie. We were so invested in Wolfgang. Like we actually liked him, and the power of a good film and a good actor. So it's you hit two birds with one stone. If you have a strong film and strong writing, and you have an incredible actor and actors in and around that moment, you have pitch perfect perfection. And that is what you get with Wolfgang and his family. You are bought in. Every time they show up on the screen, you're like, oh, this is going to be good. Because one, they've written them well.
Yeah.
And two, you've got some seriously strong actors pulling those roles together. Mm-hmm. And that's what we get with Wolfgang.
And it's so brief. It's
And it is
sad.
Yeah.
because you don't get it with anybody else. And you like so many missed opportunities with Ben because you could have had Mom be like, you know, honey, like you got to go to bed. What are you doing late at night? Oh, I'm just reading. Or
Yeah.
there could have been that engagement
Yeah.
there where we would have been like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. Oh, okay, there's some tension there. Mom suspects something or whatever.
It's
and
like
then,
Mom makes some comments like, why do you always like all this scientific stuff,
Yeah.
whatever?
Well,
Because they even hint that, like, was it in Wolfgang's basement?
Yeah,
all
all
those
his-
math science stuff is from Ben.
oh yeah, no,
the
that's
weird
where,
science
that's
magazines.
where Dad gets mentioned. So
Yeah.
he says, yeah, no, my dad thought I threw it all away, but I just store it here.
Yeah, and it's Dad's stuff, and it's kind of like, well, why didn't we see some of Ben's family
Right.
and them doing all that kind of? No,
Right.
instead we got Wolfgang's family, so we feel
Right.
more connected to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
side character
Right.
versus the character that's moving us through the story.
Right.
Because we're supposed to be following Ben and his
Yeah.
drive to have
Yeah.
all these adventures and stuff.
And then Junkyard Kid, you just don't see the family at all.
No.
Well,
Well,
it's
you do
a-
get to
you-
see that
you-
shack thing where
Yeah,
they
you-
hear
Oh, yeah.
voices.
Well, that was also
And then it
strange.
blows apart within like less than a minute. It's
Yeah.
like, oh well, so much for that.
I hope my dad doesn't figure this out. Like, so you hear Dad, but you don't see him. And maybe the movie's intention was to create that idea of separation. So like you've got the families, and we see the other families, so they're warm and inviting, and we're welcomed in. But with Darren's family, it's isolated. We're blocked off. So and again, this is a movie or a film technique to create that isolation, so that we go, well, where's his dad? Why is his well? Because he's not visible, because we don't see him, and that also then doubles as what Darren might be feeling is that isolation, and he doesn't want to be in that house. He doesn't want to go there because it's not a good place. He's going to get yelled at. His dad's going to be mean and whatever. Yeah. So like, I get what they were trying to do with that, but as a viewer, it's like, I want to know. I want to actually get a sense. I want to feel this. And as hard as it would have been to have something with Dad and his son, it would have been hard to watch, probably, but I think as a storytelling device, it would have been important.
Yeah. Have a scene where Dad just chases him off one day.
Right. Or throws a beer bottle at him.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, okay, now we hate Dad.
Yep.
Now we properly are mad. Now
like, do the 80s trope angry dad that shows up with his dirty wife beater and and yells some stuff at him.
Yeah.
It's funny, later on we get the alien father does that. Why can't we have Darren's dad do that?
Let's look at
It'll be a good connecting point in the movie.
Yeah.
We're headed
I didn't gather that was Dad's junkyard. Yep. I didn't make that connection.
That's where he works.
Yeah.
It's not his. He
just works there. Okay.
And then he says, like, the other guy who owns it doesn't really care. And there's not really a security system, and the dog eats gum.
Oh, that was so weird.
Which is just, like, the toss-away line was, oh, he's a weird dog. It's like...
They're like, why'd you give him gum? And he's like, wouldn't you like gum?
And then he's like, he's a weird dog anyway. I'm like, okay, that's a throwaway line that you're trying to convince your audience it's okay, but we're
watching the dog chew and struggle, and I'm not.
We have a lot of questions about that.
That was weird.
So the introduction to the three characters is disappointing. We get the one strong one, River Phoenix. His Wolfgang Mueller is brilliant. The family's brilliant. And Jason shows up, saves him from the bully, but you notice.
Oh,
Jason,
Darren.
Sorry, Darren. Yeah. The actor's name is Jason. The character Darren takes off.
Yeah, he tries to leave, and he's shutting down Ben completely.
Right.
And then you get the weird scene where he drives away on his little motorbike.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. Right. You have a little dirt bike kind of thing.
Gas powered, whatever.
And somehow Ben on his pedal bike catches up with him. I don't like what?
Movie magic.
Ben's been drinking his milk and taking his vitamins. He's been following the Hulk Hogan method.
No, back in the day, it was Ovaltine, sir. Remember? That's Ovaltine.
Ovaltine. My apologies. So yeah, that was a weird moment where he's going away on his motorbike with gas powered whatever, and then Ben's able to catch up with him on his bike. And then I guess Darren says, "Okay, I'll come hang out with you."
He drops his Walkman. Isn't that what he dropped? That gray thing.
And he brings So Ben brings it back to him and says, "Hey, here's this. If you wanted it." And it's kind of a touching moment where Darren, that Walkman is important to him.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. This is, again, we don't get a sense of how important that Walkman is.
Nope.
We don't know if it was given him by somebody or if that's the last thing that he owns that his dad hasn't messed up. You don't get a context for it. So you're left to go, what and why is that a piece of value? Because later on in the movie, he uses it to put the headphones on the alien so the alien
shows
can
them
listen
American
to it.
music, yeah.
But that the Chekhov's gun, if you can call it that, or whatever. It's that the purpose of that Walkman is just to serve as a thing.
Yep.
It doesn't actually serve a point in the story with weight and value.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Because they don't point anything anywhere. Extrapolating from it, I say you, me, and Vicky consider and be like, well, that Walkman is probably another way he blocks out his dad and that horrible world he's surrounded by.
And Walkmans weren't cheap at that time.
Yeah, and Walkmans were definitely not cheap. So it's like, where did he get this from?
Right, and how did he save for it? And how is he keeping it
steal
safe?
What's the story?
Right, and that could have been a layer that would have been, because we have the sheriff later. Well, what if the sheriff had experience with this kid, arresting him for thieving? That could have been a cool layer that actually would have served to help the sheriff be involved in the story.
Yeah, we'll get to the sheriff.
Oh,
and Aaron's jacket.
Oh my God. just stuff. So we get the introductions, and somehow the way that they set this up, so Ben dreams about a symbol or a circuit board or something.
Yeah.
He dreams it, wakes up, and starts to sketch it out, and then through This
They decide they need to build it.
They build it.
Don't
Yeah,
know
well,
why.
he gets in touch with Wolfgang
Right.
because Wolfgang's a super nerd
Yeah.
to build the stuff,
Yeah.
put it together,
Yeah.
whatever.
But we don't see him building it. We just see the finished product. Oh,
Yeah.
I've done this and I've done that. Here's our circuit board, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, what from the dream circuit to the reality?
How? Like, this is a big gap where they didn't really
Right.
fill it in.
Well, and so the nerdy side of me, if you have a circuit board or you have something that you design, you have to actually put data on that thing for
Yep.
it to do a thing. You can't just put a hard drive in a computer, put a processor, and then just say, my computer works. No, you have to connect it. You have to format it. You have to install
Put in some Windows or something,
the
yeah.
operating system.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a base from which to then program. And what the movie does, and glosses very much over that, and there's probably a reason why, because they don't want to bore us, but it's like all we have is a circuit that you designed, and all of a sudden, it's programming itself.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, maybe you could say we're getting a signal. Like, there's a signal that's coming into the house from somewhere, or I'm not sure where that signal's coming from, but that is not a part of that conversation.
Yeah, like earlier on, it's not. Later on, they do get a signal, but it's
Yeah.
only when they're up in space.
Right.
And it's kind of like, okay.
Right. And so using
We could have had that earlier.
Right. So using the little whatever circuit board that they designed, they are then able to design a bubble, a self-contained bubble of matter that flies and does all kinds of
And
things.
it drills holes into things instantly.
Yeah.
That was never explained.
The idea behind that is that the state of that matter, of that bubble, or whatever you call it, is so solid that it is impenetrable, that it is almost like a bullet or a force
Yeah.
that is just, you can't get, like, if it went for the cat, it would have cut a hole through the cat. And so
Yeah.
the idea behind that is that it's so powerful, and there's energy probably around that bubble.
I don't think they describe it as that.
Yeah.
It's just they said it's a force field.
Right, but as we
Yeah.
if we kind of extrapolate, okay, this is what it does, this is what it would need to be.
Because I think maybe what they're hoping that we pull from this is that, okay, at first his Wolfgang's programming and understanding of controlling it is so rough.
Yeah.
He's just kind of flinging it around. And that's why we get the holes and everything.
Well, he doesn't get flung around because
And then
of
he-
him.
he
it's
learns.
the cat. The
Yeah.
cat jumps all over the keyboard and it goes.
That's what happened.
Oh no, they do the fling around at first because remember he puts all the holes through the bookshelves.
Yeah.
And then he learns to refine the controls, and then the cat jumps on it, and then they punches the holes through a whole bunch of stuff, and he learns to. Wolfgang, the brilliant one, in the background, kind of figures out how to control this thing and how it's like airtight.
Yeah.
So whatever air is in there is it.
And I like
And
that.
that's an idea that comes back later.
I like that actually works
Mm-hmm.
because they talk about it and they say, well, we're running out of air. We don't have enough air. And then they figure out how to program an air supply or creation
The
device.
aliens feed him a
device
plan.
of how to do that with a circuit board, additional circuit board. And that works. Like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
proud of those screenwriters for that because it actually was presented. It was problem solved, and then it was done.
Well, remember they do mention like in class they have that thing where the in between that moment where the teacher like, what's carbon dioxide?
Right,
talks to Ben. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, we get it. They're gonna breathe out carbon dioxide
Right.
and kill themselves if they suck up all the air.
Yeah. So like, yeah. So there's that. So there's a scene of and what's funny is when you disconnect the computer, the ball of power goes away.
Yeah.
So there's a connection between the computer and the creation or presence of that sphere, which is
It's how much power is applied to
right.
it
And
too.
how is the
Because we had
computer
our
able to
grown
make-
room. Remember, he rips out and he shows you how he's powering
right with
everything.
a 9-volt battery.
Yeah, 9-volt battery. Both me and Aaron were like, at the same time.
9-volt battery does not create a sphere of constant mass. That
And even just run that computer that he's got
Right.
at the
Yeah.
time. They're like, no.
That's the
no.
other part. You're just like, how is this computer working? But again, it's that suspension of disbelief. But here at Nerds by Screenlight, we sometimes push against the suspension of disbelief and kind of say, well, okay, really, can we really suspend our belief about this?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, if you're going to go into details, as they do, where
Yeah.
he bothers to even show you, this is what I'm powering of,
Yeah.
make it a little more real.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
If you're just going to gloss over it, don't mention it,
Yeah.
just keep going.
Yeah, don't even mention power structure.
Yeah.
I think if they hadn't mentioned the 9-volt, I wouldn't have had an issue.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
hadn't shown the battery.
Well,
yeah.
so we're going to take a small rabbit trail off into the Star Wars situation, right?
Yep.
So Star Wars episode 4, 5, and 6 now, A New Hope and on, there is never a mention about fuel.
Yeah.
In any of the original Star Wars films. And even in the prequels, I don't think they mention fuel. Now there may be in the prequels that there's they start to talk about it, but there's midichlorians, but that's a whole nother episode. So they don't talk about fuel, right?
Yep.
So then we have episodes 6, 7, and 8.
Yep.
And we get, we don't have enough fuel.
Yep.
What and where and why? It didn't ever need to be a thing.
Yeah, and you're gonna make me really angry if you keep going down this road because this is like a sore point for me. Because
I can see
remember
the
the
steam
whole
starting to
movie
rise.
of episode 8 is basically the slowest space chase in
Yeah.
existence,
Yeah.
and it infuriates me.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. It is the dumbest script writing I have ever seen in a movie, and I've watched a lot of movies, and we've watched a lot of.
Yeah,
stupid
we've
movies.
watched those movies, stupid movies.
Here's the thing: when you look at Star Trek, right? Star Trek, the dilithium crystals. It's established the dilithium crystals are charged.
Yeah.
and they are a supply of power, and you can recharge them. And sometimes they wear out, or sometimes something happens and they malfunction,
Yeah.
and you have to replace them. But the dilithium crystals are never a critical situation where we're going to run out now.
Yeah.
They work, they function, they power the ship. There's never an issue with power unless it's something extraordinary, an act of God, or an enemy is using it against them. That's Star Trek as a whole. Now,
Yep.
I am cutting us off after Deep Space Nine because Enterprise is probably all right. But when we start talking about Picard and Discovery, I'm not even going to get into that. That's where our canon ends. We're talking about dilithium.
Well, remember, we're now gonna have to go buy into Paramount Plus to even watch any Star Trek stuff because they hauled it on
and
one roof now.
Strange New Worlds is coming, which I'm interested about. I'm actually kind of curious to see if they can make that better.
That's following Captain Pike, right?
Yep. And I've
Okay.
watched the trailers, and I am intrigued. There is a very arrogant presence among the characters because most of them in their trailers, character-specific trailers, have been like, "Oh, I'm the best at what I do," and it's like, okay, well now I got.
They don't have Spock do that because that's
They have
the
Spock.
Vulcan.
They do have Spock. They recast him.
Did they make him arrogant like that? Because he's
no,
Spock.
but it's like the doctor talks about it, and the engineer who's blind, which is interesting. But they supplement it with like he uses all their senses and it works. Okay, whatever. And I genuinely got to watch the trailers. And I was like, okay, all the characters seem all right. Like they bring Christine Chapel in. Like they're doing stuff that like is Star Trek based.
Okay.
But the way that those characters are like, they're like, well, we're a part of the flagship of the fleet. We're the best of the best. And it's like. Arrogance and pride was never really a part of Star Trek.
No.
So I'm cautiously optimistic about Strange New Worlds. I will probably get a subscription and watch the first episode or two. What's interesting about it, so this is the Anson Mount Pike who in Discovery discovered his future and knows what's going to happen to him. So this Pike knows his future and knows that he will eventually be in that little container and that will be his life. He knows that's coming. So that part and element is interesting to look through the lens of that. So we'll see. So we got into the Star Trek. We'll jump to Star Wars. So the idea of fuel, like when you talk about this stuff, if it's getting in the way of the story, if you invent it because you need a plot point.
Yep.
Well, we need to have them running out of fuel, or we need to have them like this needs to happen. And it's like, well, if it's never been mentioned in any of the movies before this,
Yep.
why did you suddenly decide, well, we need to insert this new idea after 30, 40 plus years of Star Wars canon?
Yep.
Where now it's like, no, we gotta have fuel. Well, now that you've introduced it, now you got to live with it.
Yep.
So every single Star Wars production from then to eternity now has to talk about fuel.
Yeah.
Because if you ignore it, then that means nothing, which they should. They should just get rid
They
of that.
should get rid of it.
But-
I mean, there's good rumors going around where they're talking about they're going to redo the last 3 movies.
They're gonna-
Which please
I
do.
highly doubt that'll happen, but
I highly doubt it'll happen, but it's kind of like, please do it.
please refix
Please
it.
redo it.
So-
Don't let Abrams anywhere near it.
Yeah.
Please.
But what's interesting is they talk about like the comparison between the movies production and the television series, like The Mandalorian and Boba Fett. Like people have been very appreciative, and Jon Favreau is the part of the TV series production crew that has made that. So anyway, my point of it is that if you're gonna put something in there, and that's why when they put in the idea of the oxygen and all that stuff, like it worked, it paid off. There was like, okay, yeah, that's a part of the story, and that answers the science question.
Yeah.
Because people will be watching it and they go, how can you breathe in space?
Yep.
Okay, we got to figure that out. And then screenwriters are like, okay, we'll have another dream sequence with another microchip,
Yeah.
and then we'll have a scene at the workshop, and it'll blow up, and we'll have the air, and boom, shakalaka, answered, and
Yep.
moving on.
Thing is, I also like as like someone looking at this and how much time they spent on it, I'm like,
Yeah.
you could cut all that out.
Yeah.
Just say it's in the original circuitry. Oh, this thing's generating oxygen.
Oh, we don't need the oxygen tank.
Yeah.
I'm smelling it. Like, this is pure oxygen. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
we don't need that.
because remember, like that was one of the things we commented, like how much this movie did drag because there's
Yeah.
segments that just didn't fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you did your research about the movie, and it was like rushed.
Yes.
And there was an original cut of like 3 hours and 10 minutes that got yanked because the production company and and whoever was making it was like, no, you gotta get it out fast.
Yeah, the studio decided they needed to crank it out fast.
Yeah.
We found the perfect date for it.
Yeah.
Get it in there.
Yeah.
And if you know your 80s, folks, this movie released between Live Aid and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So it was doomed to die.
Yeah. And Live Aid was the massive concert with
Yeah.
everybody involved that shook the music scene, and of
Yeah.
course Back to the Future, legendary film that it is,
Yes.
Yeah.
captured the imagination of generations.
Yeah,
And
so its
you-
perfect weekend was just, whoa, what are you
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about? You're not.
And it didn't. So you rushed it, and you overcooked it, overclocked it, even if you will use that expression. So there is a lot in this movie that just like.
It felt like subpoints did nothing, went
Yeah.
nowhere. Like the whole sheriff thing.
Yep. So
yeah, let's talk about the sheriff thing.
So they take it and they get it and they go and they end up at the movie at the drive-in, and they're like too close to the screen, and no one's freaking out about
Yeah.
seeing this weird
Well,
spaceship.
because
on
they see
screen.
the space stuff, they go, "Oh, that doesn't look real." And
Yeah. Oh,
Then
look
they
how
figure it
fake it
out.
is. You can see the wires. And you don't want to know another thing I learned in my research.
Yeah.
The kid that's sitting in that car with his girlfriend, they're
Yeah.
making all that comments, that's
Yeah.
supposed to be Ben's older brother.
oh,
And we never got introduced.
never
to
And
met
they
him.
didn't introduce him, anything like that. It's supposed to be Ben's older
my
brother
gosh.
who knows all these campy movies and stuff and is making these
Right.
comments because he watches these movies with Ben.
Oh, but we don't see that.
And they don't give you any of that. I had to learn that by digging around on the internet a little bit last night while I was just kind of tired. And it's kind of like, what? I'm like,
That would have been so much cooler.
seriously.
Because, like, and that, again, we talk about foundational storytelling. I'm a writer. I'm a language arts teacher. I love story. I love it when it's done well.
Yep.
And you mentioning that is like, oh my gosh, you could have had a scene with them two watching the movies, and the older brother go, oh, you can see the wires, and Ben being like, but it's so cool, man. You gotta suspend your disbelief, man. You when you get older, man, you're gonna hate these movies because you're gonna see all the effects. But it's so cool, man. Look at their act, like that.
And then
could've-
wind it into the whole,
Yep.
here's them at the drive-thru, and he's talking about, oh, you can see
Yep.
the wires, whatever, and it's
Yep.
actually Ben in his
right, Ben,
spaceship.
and that moment would be a lot more hilarious than it would have been with what they gave us.
And then you have, I thought it was this is a little sidetrack. No,
Yeah.
whatever. The main character in that movie is called Starkiller, whatever. They took that name and slapped that on there
Yeah.
as an homage to
yeah.
the original name of Luke Skywalker was
was gonna be- yeah,
Starkiller.
he was gonna be Starkiller,
Oh.
and then George Lucas changed it at the last minute to Skywalker.
Yep.
Which either one would have worked, but Skywalker's just it's
Sounds
much more
better.
poetic.
More
poetic.
hopeful.
Yeah, there's a walking on the skies versus Starkiller. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's Robert Picardo
Yep.
as in that role, which I missed. I love Robert Picardo in Voyager and everything else he's done in the world. We've seen him in a couple of 80s movies.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised but not surprised.
What was it? It's the guy that did Gollum and did all the little kind of
Andy
characters.
Serkis.
Andy Serkis. He was like the 80s version of Andy Serkis.
Okay.
Because he does, like, Picardo seemed like, just looking at his IMDb page or whatever,
Yeah.
in the 80s, it seems
Yeah.
like he's the guy in the costume a lot,
Okay.
which being like aliens and weird creatures.
Right.
Remember in Legend, he was the hag
Yeah.
that got the head
Oh.
chopped off.
Yep.
That's
So
him.
it's kind of like, yeah, Picardo seemed to be moving around in the background as like the creature actor
And then
guy.
he
It's the
landed
common
on,
denominator in the movies.
Yeah,
and
just-
then
we
he
didn't
landed
know.
on then he landed at Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a coincidence. We didn't know, guys.
And you know, we'll take the happy coincidence because Robert Picardo became the Doctor on Voyager and became an absolute brilliant thing to watch.
Yeah, he was like the favored character out of that whole
People
series.
adored him and his idea and and focus and story about identity and was he human? Was he conscious? What was his value? You know, do we keep him like it's a fun story.
And I found it hilarious when they figured out how you could like move him off the medical bay.
Yeah.
And then like the very next episode, I think is like proving that he could beat up people because he's like stronger than like even like
Yeah.
a Klingon.
Yeah.
Even though he can't like he had trouble with
Yeah.
it because I don't believe in violence.
Right. Voyager was a fun series and they ended it perfectly. Okay, so back to the Explorers off the Voyagers. So where are we at?
Well, there's a moment where they are flying through the movie theater and they crash through, and the way they made the cuts to the movie,
it seemed like they were interacting with Robert Picardo's film that was on
it was
display.
very confusing.
And
Like,
it was
is this
like-
a play or is it a movie? Do they know?
And I wonder if there was more there in the shoots that they had done where they were being rushed. If there was like a break the fourth wall kind of moment where Robert Picardo and his set that was being played on the big screen would have interacted with the explorers a little more or something
like that.
But it just kind of felt odd because you're sitting there and you're like,
very
Did
confused.
they just
is Starkiller reacting to the kids smashing this place?
And I love how they just absolutely just smashed through the concession stand.
Oh yeah, and they're like, oh, it was planned to get torn down anyway. And it's kind of like, oh, you just swept that underneath the rug,
Right. It was fantastic. So then they get out, and then do they go to space at this point?
Oh
or-
no! Apparently the police were called and a helicopter shows up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
this is when we
helicopter-
get the sheriff introduction.
So the sheriff shows up with his assistant buddy or whatever, deputy sheriff, I don't even know, because they don't show him in police cars.
No.
They're only the sheriff in the helicopter. So maybe he's like a helicopter sheriff. I don't know. And so they're like,
Are we under arrest? What's happening?
right, and they're like, they can't see inside, so they see like the masks that they're wearing and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, and then they program, get us out of here, and they take off, and they're gone wherever they go, and the sheriff is like, what did we just see? I gotta know more.
And then he starts saying, I had dreams when I was a kid.
Yeah, so
And you're
this
like,
is another storytelling point.
Yep.
So the sheriff
it
is
starts to go downhill from here.
it doesn't go downhill until we get to space.
Well, that's to you. To me, this is when it starts going, all right, you're going down.
Right.
When he starts hitting him the jacket.
The jacket is when it really fell off for me, and then I started making fun of the movie the rest of the way through, which I apologize to you two because that jacket moment.
I was doing it again, I feel like. I
Okay.
was like,
So
why did you buy this?
let's kind of walk through this for a second. So the sheriff says he had dreams about this before,
But it was a throwaway line, and then just skip.
Yep. And so what we suspect, and what I suspect is that when that sheriff was younger, he was having dreams about this kind of thing. That the aliens were trying to reach him in his youth because he was a good kid. He was not going to murder them or capture them or whatever. That he had a heart of gold, similar to what our other characters in the movie have. And so the kids finally get home. They land in the backyard again, and they go inside. And he is like, okay, I'm gonna it's the next morning, and they get back to the helipad. Apparently, they've been flying all night.
Oh, hold on, team time out. An important point. They have a dream again, and all three of them are in
flying.
the same dream. They all have the same dream about the missing part of the circuit that they need.
Yeah, this is the air thing, the thing that makes oxygen, because they flew up to space and started having issues, and they had to crash land and whatever.
You know what? I think for me as a story, because it gets really wonky in the end with the end scene, I think if they had each had their own dream, like so Ben has his dream about the thing and he drops it. Then Wolfgang has the dream about the additional device.
Yep.
And then you find a way for Darren to have a dream about something else. So they come together and they go, wait, you had a dream? Oh, I had a dream last night. I had a dream? You had a dream? Oh my gosh, we had 3 separate nights, 3 different dreams. Then they put together their knowledge, they assemble things, and it's more of a collaboration versus just
That'd be cool.
Everybody's together.
weird shared
And you were
dreams.
talking in the dream to each other.
Yeah. This is my research from last night, too. It was part of the directors and writers thing where they wanted to kind of touch on the whole, the idea of the collective subconscious kind of thing, and how the kids are all kind of connected together.
Let's go very deep into the collective on the 80s movie. Let's
So
explore some of that.
This is why I was kind of like, I read this and I was kind of like, because this was the guy's words.
Yeah.
He said this, I wanted to do that, whatever, but I had to cut it and leave it out. And it's like, no, you left chunks of it in there that make everything kind of weird, buddy.
You needed to fix that.
Yeah.
Why are we all having the same dream?
Yeah, they're all having the same dream. And remember, they have the same dream at the end, and it invites the girl
We'll
in.
get there.
They're
We'll get there.
flying.
We'll
It's
get there.
really
We'll get there.
So that's the part of the struggle I have and I just was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So they figure out the oxygen thing, and then so the helicopter lands. They've been flying around all night apparently.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm gonna go up and take another look. And he's like, okay, dude. Well, be safe
Yeah, his
or whatever.
partner's kind of like, yeah, whatever, buddy.
Let everybody see ya. And he goes to the newspaper machine and opens it up and pulls out an article.
Oh, this is the sheriff's partner, by the way, not the sheriff. The sheriff took off already.
Yeah, the sheriff partner. There's an article. Is it a UFO or is it swamp gas? and he just kind of
Swamp
looks.
gas?
That was the swamp. The line.
Swamp gas.
That's always been a lot of the conversation about like UFOs. Oh, it was swamp gas or whatever. That's been it was a common excuse in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Meanwhile, you have the evidence that red thing smashed through a
That's why
drive-in.
again I go back to my original point. Swamp gas?
it was the 80s, man. We're just suspension of disbelief
make any
everywhere.
sense.
We're blanketing in suspension of
Yeah,
disbelief.
so the sheriff takes off, and it's amazing how Maryland, where we're supposed to be,
Oh, it's Maryland.
suddenly looks like Southern California. But that's whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is.
As he's flying around,
And he sees it.
he sees it.
Now he doesn't land. He
No.
goes back later at night.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where for James everything goes south here.
Yeah.
So the sheriff like goes and inspects the thing, and he's like peering in, and he gets a hold of a coat and he pulls it out.
Well, he gets a hold of Ben's coat.
And
And it's like a very 80s thing where it's like, I remember, even my mom did it on one of my coats, where
Yeah.
you write your kid's name and
Right.
address in there.
Yeah.
So you could return it to
So
them.
you can return it to
Or
them.
if,
wouldn't do that today,
or
of
if the
course.
kid's
A
lost,
kid's lost.
you say, "Hey, let me see your coat." Oh, I know where to go.
So
get
he
you.
finds Ben's coat.
and
then
comes
takes
up
it
to him in a
with him.
very creepy way.
takes it with him and shows up at Ben's house.
Yeah, in the middle of the night, creeping through like the bushes and
Right.
stuff.
And so
Yes.
Ben's leaving to sneak out to go back to his ship.
What
Yeah,
sheriff
because
does
something
that?
happened. Yeah, what sheriff? Well, that's the important part that they
Right.
left out here is like, okay, there's Ben figures something out
Yeah.
or whatever, has that dream or some sort of
Yeah.
thing, and so he's running to Wolfgang's house.
Yeah.
in the dark.
Yeah.
And then as he's running, all of a sudden, sheriff just kind of like steps out of the bushes and is like, "I have your coat."
Right.
Do you want it?
Doesn't
Do you
identify
want it
himself
back?
as a
And-
sheriff. Is not wearing a uniform of
Doesn't
the
show
sheriff.
Yeah.
his badge.
There's
Doesn't
no,
say
there's no
his
police
name.
car nearby.
So the
There's
kid just
none
he
of
takes
this.
off, and
So
he's
just
like, "Where are you
random
going?"
old dude just jumps out of the
Right.
bushes like, "Have your coat," and like basically that's basically what happens there. I know there's a few more lines, but
Yeah.
it basically the only thing is like, "I have your coat," and Ben's like, "Well, how'd you get that?" And then just takes off running.
And he gets the coat from him at least.
I don't remember if the
I
kid
don't know.
even
It
grabs
just-
it away from him
I
or
don't
just keeps
either.
running. I
Right.
think he just keeps running.
Yeah. So he runs and
And
It's
that's where
creepy.
it is totally creepy. It's very poorly done.
Yeah.
It should never have been in there. Whatever. And that's when it jumped the shark, and then it's when I was like started making jokes of it, and I'm like, Aaron, how would you feel? It's like, "I have your coat." Someone just steps out of the
Right, right.
bushes
Why
on
you
you.
would-
Why are you
swing
running
on
away from me?
I'd
Yeah.
swing on him like,
Creepy,
you're
man.
a weird man. I'm going to call the police.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, identify yourself as a sheriff.
Right.
Do something.
So then
other
he-
than "I have your coat."
Right. So they show they go to the ship, and he's like, "There's a dude. He's chasing me. We got to go." And the sheriff does show up and watches them launch and says, "You go, kid." Or
Yeah,
something.
he has this smile on his face where he's so proud, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like, "You go, kid."
And
And it's kind of like, "What? What? You're the creepy man that jumped out of the bushes."
right. And I think the part of the movie that we're missing is the storyline for him.
Yeah, what was
Is
the
that
sheriff's story? Yeah.
He probably had, again, like I said, he probably had dreams about this in the past.
I wanted to know what the story was.
And has been struggling with these
Connect with
dreams
the
for his
kids,
life.
help
Probably
them.
never went to therapy, never got help for it, and
Yeah.
now suddenly he sees, oh my gosh, it's real. There's so many better ways
But
to show
yeah,
us
and
that.
even then, it should have been like, instead of just being like, "You go, kid," because
Right.
he doesn't know what those things are gonna make.
Right.
It should have been like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that's what it was.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
like kind of where's this shock and awe, like
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
and then later on, maybe if they bring him back, it should have been like, "Good job, kid, whatever you figured out." And yeah. And they
Sorry, I
have a
was
talk
creepy about your coat.
where he identifies himself as a sheriff. Finally, at some point,
Right.
I'm sorry, it's just
and
that
returns the
whole
coat to the kid
point
and
where he
apologizes.
just pops up on him in the dark. "I have your coat." It's kind of like, no.
It was a disappointing part of that movie, and it didn't get any better. Like, okay,
Nope.
so they jump in the ship, they go up to space, they have the oxygen, they have the things.
And then they let the aliens guide them in, because remember that's how they
Yeah,
like
there's
they
a huge
first had their
spaceship
accident.
they're
is
going
they
into,
pulled
yeah.
the plug on
Yeah,
their thing
so
and crash land.
they go into warp speed,
Yep.
and they end up at a ship. The ship pulls them in, and this is the part where I knew we were in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So they get pulled in, and they're like, "Oh, we'll just stay in here," and then it gets
Yeah, the
shot.
aliens zap the
And
ship.
they're like, "Okay, we're getting out."
Yep.
And they get out. It's like, "Oh, it's funny," and then there's nobody there to greet them.
Yes.
Except for a lot of dry ice.
Right. So much.
Yeah,
dry ice.
there's so much dry ice.
So much fog, and so then they start to voyage through the ship to try and find the people that captured them or that are searching for them, and it becomes boring. Like there's a lot of set work that went into making these corners and these corridors and all that stuff. Like, it's pretty incredible what they pulled, but it doesn't serve a point. It
It felt like this part felt like so dragged on.
This is when I
Where
started
it's just
looking at my
kids
phone.
wandering around, and I'm just like, what? is going on?
Yep. And then we have our friend Wolfgang. He like stumbles and his glasses fall off, and he finds something, and he goes, doesn't put his glasses on. This is the moment that I was worried that we're going to have that trope of the glasses are broken and he can't see. But then he sees somebody, and then we don't see him again.
Oh, remember
for a while.
before that we have the weird alien robot thing frisking the kid
Oh
and
my
taking
gosh.
like the picture of the girl out of his pocket.
Right.
Which I'm like,
This is
how
the
do you
point-
have the picture of this girl?
This is the point I just started
But,
cracking up because it
yeah.
was so awkward.
It was so like what it was trying to do is it's that scene in Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, where the little eye pops out of Jabba the Hutt and goes, "I'm here to."
Speaking of droid language and the
whatever. So that was an attempt at it, but the problem is that it just went on for too long.
It's coming from this
Yeah.
vacuum cleaner that
Right. And
the vacuum things that
that's
sniff him
checking
and
you
whatever.
for weapons or what?
yeah, and then
And I made horrible jokes about this, which we won't go into that, but whatever.
it's just and it like they try and like and so he like it scans him and it goes turns him around and pulls the picture of his crush out of his back pocket, and it's not it's just a normal, like, I'm guessing a yearbook picture maybe, but these
Yeah.
guys are in junior high, so I'm not in the 80s maybe they had yearbooks, but we don't get an established grade level for these kids.
They don't really tell us what their
maybe
age is.
7th
Yeah.
or 8th grade, maybe if we're lucky. And so then we've got the picture may have come from the yearbook. He might have cut it out
Maybe.
because there's no way this girl gave him her picture.
Must
Yeah,
make
no
any
way.
sense.
Because they're not close enough. Like she just knows him kind of as an ancillary person in her world.
And then thinking about it, it's so weird. Like, what, you run around all day with that in your pocket?
Like I admit, if I had a crush on a girl and I was in middle school, if I had a photo of her, I would put it in my wallet. Like I would be like, oh, I like this girl. Here's her photo. Like boys do weird things when we're in middle school.
That's true.
And we have with our crushes, we do a lot of weird things to try and get their attention or to remember them
Yeah.
or whatever. So that I will allow, because you think about like if you had
We're not
It's
going to
hilarious
say
to watch
these
fifth grade
stories, Vicky.
boys.
Don't you make faces
I
at
know
us.
enough for the 5th grade boy.
in middle school, like if you liked a certain pop star or you would have posters of her in your room. Like
Yeah.
this is not an unusual situation. I know it's just weird because it's like, why would you go home?
And then like the alien thing has to does that weird frisking thing of him to find it, look
Yeah.
at it, and be like, "Rrr," and then hand it back to him and then disappear.
Right.
It's like, what?
Yeah, it was poorly done CGI when they're both on the screen. And so it really felt like, okay, what you could have done is you could have done a shortened version of this where like they get backed into a corner and it takes pictures of each of them, and then it like the sniffer comes over and like sniffs their head and goes dink or dink, and then it like the scanner scans their bodies to like do you get an X-ray.
Yeah.
And then like and then he spins them around and takes like maybe he takes something from each of them.
Yeah.
So like Ben has the girl picture.
And steals Wolfgang's glasses or
Yeah.
something. There you go. That was a good one.
Well, no,
But,
because
yeah.
Wolfgang wasn't in on this.
No,
was
there
he?
is Wolfgang with him at that time.
Oh, okay.
And then they get separated after that.
maybe pulls his glasses and like scans it and says
Yeah.
does not compute or what is purpose,
Something like that, yeah.
like whatever purpose of this, and Wolfgang's so I can see why. See, my eyes don't work like they should. Why eyes not work? That's how I am. Inconclusive, and then hands the glasses back.
Or something.
And then says, we must report this, and goes and goes back. And so now it's like, oh, they're going somewhere to report what they've surveyed and scanned, but you don't get any of it.
no, we don't get any. We just get this weird thing
and then it retreats,
interacting with
and
them.
it never comes back.
Yeah, and
again.
meanwhile, Darren is off by himself. This is when he's
Wandering.
doing parkour on all the little bits and pieces in the
wandering around the ship doing
Yeah.
who knows what. And again, if we had like him feeling alone, but the thing is that because I'm like, okay, well, maybe he feels abandoned. Maybe he feels alone. Maybe he's in a corner crying. But that does not fit Darren's character because he's always been alone.
Yeah.
He's never had friends. So he's not going to be feeling abandoned or alone. He's going to be probably feeling like, I'm back where I am, being alone. This is just normal. So there's that missing tension with him and being the guy who's off on the side.
Yep.
You're like, well, I don't really care about him because he's fine. He's just wandering around and
Yeah.
he's equipped to handle whatever's coming at him. And then Wolfgang gets pulled off.
Yeah, this is when they get separated, and Wolfgang has that moment where thing, like, oh, and he looks at whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's Ben and meets up with Darren,
Yeah.
and then they meet our.
And there's that
whatever.
scene with Darren where Darren gets zapped in the head and has all these ideas
Oh,
and sees
yeah.
all these things, but we never come back to it.
Yeah.
We never
It was putting images in my head.
And that
It's
was
kinda
it.
like, that was it.
and we never go back to it. I was like, okay. So they go and they run into, and this
Things
if it-
have fallen apart
This
at this
is where
point.
this is where the
Yes.
movie falls apart for me, and I do not like it, and it makes me angry. So we're introduced to the alien, whatever dude his name is. What is his? Do we have a name on him?
It's like weak and something else begins with an N.
I don't even know.
Just call them brother and sister.
Oh, Whack and Neek.
Whack and Neek.
Who is who? Is Whack the guy?
I think Whack is the guy and Neek
he's
is the girl.
Neek is the girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whack and Neek. And here's so interesting thing. The father is it's Whack and Neek's father. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
they just say Whack and Neek's father.
so they're brother and sister.
we don't find that until later.
We don't know that information at this point. So we get introduced to Whack, and Whack has been monitoring the TV channels for years apparently, and all his conversation consists of is quotes. We start off with "What's up, Doc?" from Bugs
Bunny.
Bugs Bunny, and we end up with like other like John Wayne and all this other interspersed, a lot like what they did in Transformers with Bumblebee.
Yeah,
and that's why I felt kind of just like, oh my gosh, we're doing this again. But Bumblebee was done after this.
and Bumblebee's the way he used his phrases made sense.
Yeah, this one.
Whack
This is like if
just
you
kind of
flip
like
through the channels of the TV.
Yeah.
At high
And there's
speed,
this-
makes no
there's
sense.
This dancing scene.
where
they're
they sing a
singing.
song,
Sing a song.
Little Richard song, something like
it's
that.
like,
It's
what-
kind of like, what is going on here?
The kids are enjoying it for some reason.
Well, and what they're trying to do as actors, I'm guessing what they were told is, hey, if you enjoy this, like the kids watching will enjoy it. They'll be convinced that they need to enjoy it. It'll just be a fun little dance break. And maybe as a child, maybe I would have enjoyed it.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't want to disqualify what they were thinking about with kids, but I'm just like, I don't.
It was just it dragged on. It was so weird.
Yeah.
The alien just didn't even seem to want to communicate with him. Instead, just said all kind of bunch of movie stuff at him. And then after their song and dance thing, they finally get around to it's like, well, why choose us? And it's like, because you're not violent. And then they showed a whole bunch of movies where it's like bombs and World War II and whatever.
And so the
aliens getting beat up.
Then that's where it becomes compelling again. All of a sudden, finally, we're back on track, and our hero, our protagonist is like, well, that's not who we are, and
We're not all like that.
And it's like this moment of like, yeah, and then I don't know what happened. Does it keep going?
Well, there's the sister thing too.
Yeah, the
I don't know how
sister.
much we want to get into that.
Yeah, with Wolfgang.
Yeah, she's flirting with Wolfgang.
Well, flirting with Wolfgang. It is so weird.
Yep, it's just not. I just don't like it. It's like, because here's the thing: we don't get until much later in this scene, because it drags on so forever.
It's like,
we don't
minutes?
get an established age on these aliens.
Nope.
And so we don't know if we're looking at an adult alien brother and sister or whatever they are. And she's like, oh, you're so cute. Oh, and like putting her suction cups on his head and like flirting with him. And we're like, okay, these are middle school boys.
Running her finger across his hand.
Asking
like,
if he has a girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't. But later on, we find out, of course, because this movie can't do anything right in the latter half of this film. We find out that these two are brother and sister, and their dad. They stole Dad's starship.
Well, remember at first it was, oh no, it's space pirates.
Space pirates, but it wasn't space pirates. It was Dad, and so they then explained through an enormously long scene that didn't need to be that long that this was Dad's car, and they took it.
Yeah, it's like in the confrontation, they do the space pirate things. Oh, hurry, you gotta run, and then they drag it out a whole long other scene explaining some other stuff, and then they finally get down to their spaceship to leave and flee the space pirates. When it's too late, Dad shows up and just starts yelling at them,
and we don't get a translation.
And you don't get a translation.
No
it's just the dad figure just.
And I think they're trying to make him sound like a big villain. But
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if kids stole your dad's car and
Yeah.
picked up alien
and,
kids,
like, they
wouldn't you be mad?
They try and connect it to Darren. So
Well, Darren is like,
Darren's
oh,
like,
it's a
that's
dad.
the dad.
Yeah.
And the movie tries to give us weight there, right? Tries to see, okay, well, Darren, his dad yells at him all the time. He understands that dynamic.
Yep.
That's something that he recognizes. Oh, it's a dad.
Yep.
And like the movie didn't earn that.
Nope.
It tried, but it didn't earn that revelation of, oh, he recognized that because he's getting yelled at. No, because here's the thing. The alien dad, isn't drinking, causing trouble, throwing crap at the kid. Like, that's not happening.
Nope.
And so to try and say, well, he's connecting to this dad's anger, well, Dad's rightfully mad about stealing the dang car.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? Dad is not unreasonably yelling and shouting.
Yeah,
and
you don't
threatening.
see him do anything violent. He's
Right.
just yelling
He's
at him,
just
being like,
yelling,
"Hey, man, come on!"
And saying, take these kids home.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sending them home, whatever. It's kind
Yeah.
of that's the implication. Is like out of all that yelling, is kind of like, yeah, hey, you two, you took the car.
Right.
This is bad. You need to send your other friends home.
Yeah.
And we're going home. You know, it's kind of like, all right.
And it makes
because he gives them time.
Yeah, so much time. This scene goes on for too long. I wish I had timed it. I'm going to get a stopwatch for these movies, and I'm just going to start clicking it when the scene starts to annoy the heck out of me. And then when it's done annoying me, I'm going to click it, and I'm going to write them down. So when we sit down to use the podcast, I'm like, okay, here's the total amount of time that this movie annoyed me.
I'm surprised we didn't fast forward.
Oh, I was
almost
so tempted.
asked. I was like,
reaching for
Aaron,
that remote. I'm like, this
can't.
has got to end. And it goes on for too long. And there's just like these doe eyes from Ethan Hawke's character from Ben. Oh, we can't leave. Why we can't leave? Why?
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, pick up a signal. Like, read the room, buddy.
Yeah.
Read the room. And so it just all three of these characters suddenly become useless.
Yep.
And they're not really the powerful, strong, intelligent, or sort of intelligent characters we've been used to. It just becomes this. Almost like this moment of
Yeah, just sludge
and
on
you're
screen.
like, could you just movie? I asked you to movie earlier. Could you keep movieing, please?
Yeah.
Because we're not movieing right now. We're just sitting here not movieing.
And only started moving when it's like, oh, we're leaving now. Oh, let's just exchange some gifts, which they get the weird little crystal thing
right,
and whatever.
the thing of dreams.
Yeah, it's the stuff that dreams are made of. Okay.
Yeah. So they get off. They go away.
Wish you could see some of the facial expressions that I
Yeah,
get.
it's
the
brutal
cringing happening
now.
is great.
Want to put my head through a desk.
And then they leave and go home. And
Right.
then on their way home, the spaceship wrecks, so they can never use it again.
Yep. It crashes in the water. It sinks.
And Aaron,
they get
you
out.
make some joke about chemical waste and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
The funny part about that ship is it's full of computer parts.
Yep.
It's full of like rusted metal that's going to rust. So yeah, the ship crashes with all like they don't get anything off the ship.
Nope.
So
Just
all that
themselves.
oxygen containers, all that's sinking down. So you got plastics, you got metals, like all that's going to rust. You're going to have an ecological disaster in that little bay in about 10 years or less. And then you're going to be like, what happened? What's going on? They're going to pull it up and be like, what is this?
Yep.
So, you know,
It's a sequel waiting to happen.
Like, because it's in the middle of a marina.
Free
too.
Willy
you can
5.
You can see some other nice.
the explorers'
Oh, God.
destruction
you
rained
can-
upon us.
You can see nicer boats and stuff back there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, you dump all that junk in the middle of like a marina
Yeah.
of nice things. It's like,
Yeah. So so
oh, remember, there's that awkward thing where it's like, Lori, the dream girl, comes and watches it.
She wakes up to some kind of dream and somehow is sent the message, you need to go here, stand here out of visual range of the boys and watch them. And
in the background and not say anything.
And
Doesn't
that's
offer them a towel.
It's a spaceship.
Are you okay?
Now I know what's
Nothing.
going on. What they've been doing and why they've been so tired in class all the time. Oh, I'm making connections without actually verbalizing any of this.
Yes.
So then they turn to go and she skitters off.
Yes, she runs away.
Runs
instead
away.
of-
So they get home. They go to school the next day, and they're tired. And he pulls out the little doodad for the dreams are made of, and all of a sudden it activates, and everyone in the class is gone. He looks around, and then he's flying.
in the
Well, remember, they
clouds.
see the spaceship first. He sees
Oh,
it
yeah,
in
he sees the
the
spaceship in
corner.
the corner of the room.
And then they have the flying sequence where everybody's flying together. And Lori, the girl, shows up to fly with them.
Right.
And, oh, everything's okay now. Let's hold hands.
Which-
There's a kiss as well.
Yeah.
No conversation to
Right.
explain.
Yeah.
No, oh, hey, I'm now in love with you. Hey, I like you. You're kind of cool.
Yeah, they didn't talk to each other like the whole
Nope.
movie.
Nope.
He just pined over from a distance.
Right. And then she just, the
And she
power
just
of the-
accepts it
the
without
power
a
of the
word.
doodad
Yeah.
Doesn't make any
brings them
sense.
together.
Because so much of that, I think, is probably left that whole, like, the subconscious connected thing that he is trying to go for. But it's kind of like, if,
Yeah, they
if
didn't-
you don't explain that,
You don't earn it.
don't earn it.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong in this scene in these movies at all. You should have dropped the whole girl subplot thing completely.
And so that's how the movie ends.
Yep.
And it's dumb.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And I got on to my husband for buying this film.
I regret it. I'm going to rent it from the future now. So
Thank you.
This we then need to revisit a film that we didn't cover on this podcast, which was what was it called?
Flight of the
Flight of the
Navigator.
Navigator.
Flight of the Navigator.
We watched it and we just didn't get to record about it.
Yeah.
Well, you went to Aurora
Yeah,
the next day.
I went and did
so we couldn't-
some announcing gigs. So Flight of the Navigator, if you're wondering, is a film that at a certain point is functional and works.
Yeah.
It gets to a place where all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, and it's the point where the character, the starship's little like robotic character, stops being who he is.
Oh, it's because he scans the kid's brain.
The kid's brain. So here's the idea behind the movie. I'll break it down really quick. So the Flight of the Navigator, kid is at home. He's hanging out with his brother, and they're going and doing stuff. And he ends up falling and crashing in search for his brother. passes out, loses consciousness, wakes up. He's like, oh, I got to go find my family. Goes back to the house. The family's not there. It's some crazy, some old woman and her husband. He freaks out. He runs. He gets arrested. He gets caught or something.
Yeah.
And then they find out, well, this is where his family is, and he's been gone for 8 years or something like that.
Yeah, it was 8-year time skip.
8
And he didn't change. Everybody else did.
Everyone else grew up, and his younger brother is now his older brother, and so yeah. Now NASA's got to study him because the ship got found, and they're now and they scan his brain, and the ship shows up, and then they send the paper of the ship printing to the NASA people, and the NASA people,
he's glossing over this, folks, but actually it is a pretty good story.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Like it's movieing quite well.
Yeah, and like
this point.
that time skip thing is actually a real scientific thing that would happen called like time dilation. That happens when you move at speed of light. And it's kind of like, okay, all this is making sense, but the moment the ship scans his brain, like,
he turns into the computer turns into Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, and it's voiced by Pee Wee Herman.
And it's voiced by Paul. Yeah. So, but here's the thing about it. So he left in the late 70s, and then reappears in the 80s.
Yep.
86, I think.
Yeah, and so Pee Wee Herman's show wasn't on in the 70s.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
And so what the theory, I'm sure the movie could have explained it, is if the kid had been watching Pee Wee Herman on the TV in his little NASA room. But we don't see that. None of that information is given.
By the way, they make NASA in this movie into like a paramilitary organization almost. It's kind of makes no sense.
They're largely incompetent.
Ooh.
They are so incompetent. Like, and I get it, suspension of disbelief, but it's just like the incompetence is boggling. So he ends up getting into the ship, and the ship's narrator or the ship's computer at that point is really fun because it's like, well, what do you want me to do? Well, go 20 miles up, compliance, and they go boom, shoo, 20 miles straight up, and it's fantastic. It works. And he's like, well, get me out of here. Where do you want to go? I want to go home. Compliance, whoosh, like it's the engagement.
And the way he dresses him as Navigator.
Yeah.
It's very serious.
Yeah, and it's fantastic, and it's because he's in disbelief. The guy is serious, and it works so well. And then he scans his brain, and the computer loses his mind.
Yeah, the computer becomes so annoying
and dumb, like doesn't know how to do anything. And so that again, the movie had to make it so that our navigator could then learn how to control the ship and everything. But it becomes this like indifferent journey. Not to the center of the earth, but this indifferent journey around the world.
Yeah.
We end up in Tokyo. We end up in like
horrible stereotyping in this movie too.
We end up at an alligator farm, and like it's a cool scene because he shows up in his spaceship, and the alligator farm guy just stares at it.
Yeah.
As he goes and makes a phone call and whatever. But it's so much of it is just lost in trying to be hip and cool. The fact that they got like Pee Wee Herman's voice, you don't know it. I thought it was a cheap imitation.
We looked it up and found it.
I
think it's
real.
Vicky. Vicky is the one that found out that
it was actually Paul
real.
Rubin, and he was doing the Pee Wee Herman voice, which makes me sad because I'm guessing he probably did it differently enough that it didn't feel like I don't know.
Yeah. Because the movie came out in the middle of like Pee Wee times.
Yep.
So,
but the kid had never seen it, so it was just
to all you younger kids, like don't watch any of the Pee Wee stuff. It's terrible. But I mean, those of us that are older that went through times with Pee Wee Herman's, it was kind of like at the time it was funny, but now I'd be like, no.
And it ruins the film. It literally destroys the film. The moment the brain scan happens, it goes downhill, and then towards the end, he's like. He gets almost dropped off at his parents' house, and the NASA people show up, and he's like realizing that he's going to be tested on for the rest of his life.
You're going to be a lab subject.
Yeah, and he's like, I got to go. I can't do this anymore. And if this movie had the guts to do it, what I would have loved is for him to have left his family and gone on a journey.
Yeah.
That would have been like, oh, that's gonna hurt, because then he could be like, I'll come back someday when they don't have to find me. I'll miss you. I gotta go, and then whoosh, he's gone.
Yep.
And maybe that's how that movie ends, but it doesn't, because now we're told, and we've been told throughout the movie that no, taking you back in time would kill you.
Yes, it would vaporize
you. I don't think it would work. And what happens in the end of the movie? He takes him back to his own time.
Well, he commands him to like do it
and unharmed.
He doesn't want to.
But there's no harm. He doesn't have burn scars,
or anything.
He's not in pain, or he's not like, oh man, my arm hurts, or I broke my arm, or
it's totally fine.
Nothing happens to this kid, and he ends up back with his family, and everything's fine.
They tried to do lightning outside the ship, I guess, to establish the danger, but
they did one of those things where like it's a CGI landscape of like clouds on top and bottom and lightning flashes. And
Yeah, let me tell you how
whatever.
much that worked. It
Yeah,
didn't.
it didn't. It was bad. It was bad.
Let me tell you, watching that movie was like.
But they did a lot of stuff in this movie, apparently, in the Flight of the Navigator, where it was like groundbreaking at the time with the effects of like
Right.
the chrome ship
Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah. Oh, yeah.
reflections of it.
Oh yeah, the
The way
steps
the
were cool.
morphing of the steps.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time they did that on film.
Yeah, and so what they did, and so it's the pre-Terminator. So when
Yeah.
Terminator 2 did it with not Robert Picardo, the other guy, whatever his name is, the guy from X-Files.
Yeah, I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. He's a character actor across a lot of TV and whatever. But that was the precursor to that. So
yeah,
the fact that they were able to
learned a
pull it
lot
off,
from this. Yeah,
they did that, and that made Terminator 2's scene with the Terminator like melding into like metal and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It worked so much better because they discovered how to do that. And the effects in this movie, everything works except for the dang steps. And
Yeah.
that's just awkward when it like fills in CGI in your
well,
head.
that was the morph effect. That's
Yeah.
what they're learning.
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, it's cool that you pulled that off, and at the time it looked amazing.
Right.
But nowadays it's kind of like, ugh.
Yeah,
That's
y-
bad.
Yeah, you could have just done something differently. So yeah, it's Flight of the Navigator suffers, and I think it's a theme of the '80s movies, because a lot of our '80s movies that we treasure in our hearts,
Yeah.
they're not good.
Ooh.
They're really not. They don't hold up. There are a few granddaddies that do.
Yes.
Obviously, Goonies, Princess Bride,
Back to the Future.
legend in its own right in some ways, but Back to the Future. What else?
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Like we've watched enough of them to know that there are some unquestionable kings of the '80s
Yes.
when it comes to film. But the problem is when we talk about the nostalgia that we have as kids.
Yeah, nostalgia goggles is bad.
Yeah, and you look back on it from your like even a young adulthood, and you go, "Oh, this is not what I thought it was." And I'd be very curious. I'd be very curious to see a kid from 2022 like sit down and watch some of this, and if they would be so enraptured and intrigued and excited about it, or if they would just be like, "What is this? What am
Yeah,
I
this is
watching?"
terrible.
But you've also watched the clips on YouTube where kids are watching The Empire Strikes Back for the first time,
Yeah.
and it's revealed that, spoiler alert, it's been like 50 years, but Luke Skywalker is the son of Darth Vader, of Anakin Skywalker. And to watch those kids realize that, and the world that was built in A New Hope, and the world
And
that's
they
being
freak
built,
out,
and they
yeah.
freak out. The power of excellent storytelling,
Yeah.
competent screenwriting, competent direction, competent like scene design, all of those things come together in those first 3 Star Wars movies,
Yep.
where you just go, wow. And even like again, Return of the Jedi, as much flack as the Ewoks get,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. Like, it is not midichlorians, and it is not fuel
Yeah.
rods.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I will take the Ewoks over fuel rods, midichlorians,
Same.
and
I'm glad
everything else
'cause I
in
like
the
the
Star Wars
Ewoks.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was a good little bit because like in that movie is very, very serious in tones the
Yeah.
whole way through.
Yeah,
Where it's kind of like everything here is last shots.
yeah.
And if it fails, everything goes through. So like the
Yeah.
Ewoks bring a little bit of levity to be.
Yeah.
Everything in here is very, very.
I'll take my
Yeah.
Ewoks over whatever hot mess we get into.
I just want them to address like Ewoks are cannibals. They were eating those people. Like those helmets and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Where did
Oh,
those
yeah.
stormtroopers go?
Oh my gosh, I
These
never thought about
Ewoks
that.
Are savage cannibal people that were eating humans. I'm like, because I mean, like, think about it. When you run across our heroes, the Ewoks are capturing to go cook them.
Yep, they're gonna go cook them.
That's true.
That's the
true.
fun part about Return of the Jedi. There are some deeper implications. there.
I have this memory as an 8-year-old of being at Disney World and seeing the character dressed into Ewok and it being like amazing. And I'm very glad my 8-year-old didn't know that I was hugging a cannibal.
Yeah.
It changed the whole thing for me.
So yeah, it's one of those things where the '80s gave us some really great stuff,
Yep.
Yeah.
but it also gave us some really junk.
But I think
Stuff.
I like about the 80s though is like a lot of it is like we're taking risks.
Yeah.
We're pushing this
Yeah.
envelope.
We're pushing the line. Yep.
And it's like that is cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of our stories, they weren't afraid of taking experimental stories and trying them out.
Mm-hmm.
Which we were challenged to do one, which is a kind of experimental story. Mannequin.
Yeah, we've been told we need to watch Mannequin, which stars an incredible cast.
Yeah.
From the '80s.
I think one of the songs on the film was like,
one or nominated
huge
for an
one.
Academy Award and
Yeah.
actually almost not. I think won in something somewhere.
which we're still gonna do the Hobbit, folks. It's just I think a lot of it is like we need to find time to watch all those movies.
yeah,
Especially the newer ones, because those are long movies.
They are.
I
And we have busy schedules.
I may tap out of The Hobbit
Okay.
because I have a deep-seated and frustrating anger with those movies.
Yeah, those new movies.
I
me
will
too.
have nothing
They are
good to
frustrating.
say about them because I know what Peter Jackson and what they did is they wanted to make money. They didn't want to make a good film or films because if they had made a good film, it would have been one movie
Yep.
and one and done. But
Or
they made 3.
2 at most.
I'm thinking 2 would
I
probably
think
work.
2 would have been a good one.
Could have done it in 1.
But
There's a lot in that book.
I'm going to hold true
Yeah.
to 1. Well, there was a lot in Lord of the Ring, the other one, and they cut plenty of that. They didn't do Tom Bombadil. They didn't do
That's
they picked and
well,
chose.
that's when we covered Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Which is going to be a complicated one, but it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like great storytelling has to be paired with great directing, great acting,
Yeah.
great
Only
scene design.
the way they switched it from what Guillermo Totoro in his version,
Yeah.
and then just handed it to Jackson, like fix it, and
Yeah.
they didn't give him any time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, that you're gonna deliver subpar immediately when you
Yeah.
do something like that.
Yeah. And Del Toro's good.
He is good, but it's like I wonder, and this is our one we discuss about it, where it's kind of like, what was his vision and what
Yeah.
was happening with it, and then what really was
Yeah.
changed when it came over to Jackson,
Yeah.
and how were things not meshing very well
Sure.
in there?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's got to be like a I mean, they documented everything else. It's about all the Lord of the Rings stuff. Like,
Yeah.
what's the story there?
What went wrong?
What
Because the Lord of the
really-
Rings was so good.
Yeah. Well,
But
they
The
give
Hobbit fell apart.
yeah. It's because they gave Peter Jackson tons of time
Yep.
and tons of
Too much
capital
time.
Too much
to
time.
make the
It's
Lord of the
interesting.
Rings.
Yeah. Which is
Oh,
what
yeah,
I'm
Lord of the
worried
Rings,
about with
good.
the Amazon series, is they have thrown a lot of money at that thing. And we are also living in 2022 where stories sometimes are not done well.
Yeah.
They are done just because they have to be pretty and nice.
Let's make something really pretty and throw it out there and get money,
Yeah.
and who cares?
Yeah, and in a couple of years, people are going to hate it because they recognize how terrible the writing was.
Yeah, and then let's reboot it, and then make more money off people.
Reboot my
Ugh,
foot.
yeah,
I'll give you a
It's
reboot.
my feeling about the Spider-Man things. I'm just like, not again.
yeah.
So I have watched pieces and parts of Spider-Man No Way Home because they bring spoiler alert, which is not a spoiler alert because everyone knows, they bring back Tobey Maguire, they bring back Andrew Garfield,
Yep.
they bring back all the Spider-Mans from the modern Spider-Man movies and all the bad guys, and it's such a powerfully told closure for all those
I have
characters.
heard that's good.
Yeah,
And
is good.
it does restore the Spider-Man's kind of ethos and storyline for all of them, for
Okay.
all
Yep.
4 Spider-Men. And it's really, or for all 3 or whatever, it's really cool because that was something that people were wanting. Because for certain
too many Spider-Man movies.
The thing is that for certain Spider-Man, for like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, he didn't get a good, strong ending to his
Nope.
movie series. And Tobey Maguire, I mean, it was good, but there was
The
more
third
to-
one wasn't great.
there was more to be told. Well, Tobey
Yeah.
Maguire was great in his first one.
Yes.
But
He was
as
gr-
the- as-
the first 2 movies of Tobey Maguire were great.
Yes.
That third movie where they tried to cram too much into one movie,
Yep.
that's where it fell apart. And the studio
Yeah.
tried to
Right.
wrestle with Raimi too much. It was like,
Yeah.
let him do his thing.
Yeah. Well, and then you had Andrew Garfield and his there was so much left undone and undone well that these characters needed a final kind of piece. And with No Way Home, it is done. I've watched the battle scenes. I've watched the ending scene. Like it is an incredibly heartfelt love letter to the Spider-Man universe, into the Spider-Man comics, into the Spider-Man world.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this over and over and over again. I don't think we're ever going to stop talking about it. When you have a good storyline,
Yep.
when you have when you have good actors, when you have good plot, good setting, when you have good stuff
Yep.
that gets you where you need to go and hits hard and takes those risks and doesn't pull its punches and goes for center mass with those each swing, you've got a great movie.
Yep.
You've got a story that will last longer than the year it was made.
Yep.
And everything out there, a lot of things out there, man, I won't go back to because I'm like, Wheel of Time on Amazon.
I haven't
like,
watched it.
I
haven't
lasted
either.
3 episodes. I think I've talked about it on this podcast before. I lasted 3 episodes before I threw in the towel. I was like, this is a dumb story. I don't know where we're going. It started out great, and now we've gone 3 different directions at once, and I don't know who's who, and I don't know what matters, and I'm not even sure what's going on. I'm done. I'm out. Bye. Peace out.
Yep.
Like, there are shows that I'm just like, you're not telling a story I care to watch. Bye. And I think that some folks in the world are not that choosy. They are just taking what they can.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what, folks? You don't have to put up with terrible
Yeah,
stuff.
just stop watching it.
Yep.
They'll eventually stop. Like, get the maybe get the message and stop generating all this
Junk.
just junk. It's
Totally.
garbage.
Yep.
And shoving it into our faces, being, this is the new hype thing, whatever. And it's like, no, this is hot garbage.
Yeah, it's not worth watching. That's what I'm worried about with Star Trek: A New Worlds. Is they talked because a lot of we'll stop talking here in a second. I promise, audience, because we've closed out our shows. But the thing about Star Trek is, since with Discovery and then with Picard, they told a season-long story, And Star Trek has never been about season-long stories. I mean, there have been episode arcs in Deep Space Nine, in Voyager.
Yeah, it runs a couple
where
episodes.
There's this is part 1, and now part 2 of Star Trek, just Voyager. But they've never done really season-long, like elevated stories where everything carries over.
Yeah.
And so, what I feel like, this is an I feel statement, with Discovery is they tried to do that, and everything I've read, everything I've seen, every person I've talked to has been like, didn't work. Yeah. They're now in season 4, I think, of Discovery, and I have heard nothing great about, oh, you need to watch this. This is incredible. This is.
I mean, only thing it tells me if it's lasted that long is like it does have a fan base somewhere.
Somebody likes it.
I have not run across anybody that likes it.
Nope. And then Picard. So here's an interesting thing. So this will tickle you, or it may make you cranky like it made me. So Picard had season 1 and season 2. They're in the middle of season 2 right now.
Okay.
Season 3 is when they plan to end it, and they always had planned to end it at season 3. I don't know if I believe that or not. I think Patrick Stewart is just getting old, and it's very hard for him to be able to pull this together as an 80-year-old.
Yep.
So what they announced recently is they're bringing all the original cast members back from Next Generation to season 3 of Picard. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm worried about, right? And so it's like, okay, here's the thing. Here's what I think. I think that should have happened in season 1, because here's the deal: that Picard is a great actor.
Yeah,
Patrick Stewart is
amazing,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Jean-Luc Picard is an incredible captain with an incredible story.
Yes,
and incredible things. But here's the deal about Picard: he is never good on his own.
No.
He needs a group. And that's why I get why in Picard season 1, season 2, he had a group of new followers.
Yeah, because they assembled that weird crew, which is a mix from all the other shows, too, because you have 7 of 9 appear up. And
she came in in season 2, and then whatever. Anyway, and then Guinan comes in season 2, too.
Yeah.
They brought Q back. But
no!
Yeah, he's back in season 2, apparently. I haven't. I need to get back. I need to watch it and then hate myself. So the point of it is that what Star Trek Picard should have been, it should have been Picard with the original crew back. Because if they could have an adventure, oh my gosh, a story that we want to revisit from the Next Generation, and you do it in a way that is you give credit to nostalgia, but you also invent and create a new story or a new piece of that story.
Yep.
Right.
So it could have been a story of, okay, well, Data's creator. There's a story there that we haven't told.
Yeah.
Or there's with Hugh, the Borg. There's a story we haven't told there. There are pieces of Star Trek. I mean, it was 9 seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I think so.
7 seasons.
7 or 9, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so there are so many stories in those episodes. What would have been so powerful is if we come upon Picard, and he's in his vintage, in his twilight years.
Yeah.
But he is so like he's tried to be an instructor at Starfleet. That really didn't get him going because it was just a lot of dry conversation, and he has a similar kind of a moment of realization. Man, like Kirk did. I deserve to be in the seat of a ship.
I miss being on the ship exploring.
I miss the exploration. I miss the final frontier.
Yeah.
And maybe he's writing that in his journal, and he sits back and he sends a message to all his old crew. He says, "Crew, wherever you are, I'm hopeful that your journey is well, that you are whatever. I miss you. I wish there was a way to have another adventure." And then the scene closes. You have the intro, dun, 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 Picard's theme music, and Picard. And the opening scene is Riker showing up and saying, "Jean-Luc, we need you." Wait, you got my message?
There you
no,
go.
What, you sent a message? No, yeah. Check your. He's like, oh, yeah. I didn't see that, but no, we need you. We have a situation that requires your personal intervention. We need your help. Mm-hmm. And he's like, wait, what's going on? And the story unfolds. Well, who's on the team? And Riker can be like, well, the only people we know that really know this stuff really well, people who've been there before.
Yeah.
And he's like, you mean? And he's like, yeah, we're getting the crew. We've got Geordi online. We pulled him out of the academy. Worf, he's been working as the Klingon Chancellor. He's on loan. We've got Counselor Troy. She's been working at Starfleet Academy as well. Hey, we've also got who else is in that list of characters that I'm forgetting?
Because you could make the whole
Gates McFadden. We've got Dr. Crusher.
You could make the whole half of that series.
Yeah.
Them going around getting the crew back together, like in the giant Blues Brothers movie.
Blues Brothers, yeah.
Yeah. Or just like, let's get the crew back together.
Movie.
We need them because they're familiar with this situation,
yep.
etc.
And they know it. And you show them in their world. You introduce what's happened to them since.
And that would be magnificent.
And the payoff is it's whoever's sent to go get them. It's not Picard. It's an emissary. It's somebody like that they don't even know. And they're like, well, wait, why are you talking to me? He's like, the captain needs you. And they go, and for every single character, they snap their head and they go, Jean-Luc?
Or something, or Picard.
Picard?
Yeah.
Or maybe they say like, there's only one captain I know who would ever have the guts to do this to me. It's Picard, isn't it?
Or would know this,
or would know this. Yeah. Picard. And you can have varying reactions from those.
Yeah, you could have happier ones. You could have ones that were like angry, like why am I here?
Or why haven't I heard from him?
Yeah.
And then you have Picard meeting up with them slowly but surely and expressing his sorrow at not having kept up with them.
Yeah, you get to resolve those interesting threads.
Right. Worf can be like, how come I've never heard from you, Captain? Why have you not sent me? And Picard can be like,
I was on Deep Space Nine for how many years? You didn't really talk to me.
And Picard can be like, I felt useless. I felt useless in after the Enterprise. I returned. I felt like an empty vessel.
Yeah.
And like those dynamics of Picard's uselessness could be like, it's not that Picard loses his value, but that Picard experiences a crisis of faith of I don't have the confidence in myself unless I'm surrounded by people of equal value.
Yeah, and then it adds depth to his character because it shows like I'm aware of my flaws and I'm sorry.
Yeah, and let's make this right. Let's take this one thing that we messed up. Out of the many things we probably messed up anyway.
Yeah, and let's go fix it.
Let's fix it. Let's take our last journey together to save whatever.
Yeah.
Theme music rolls up. What ship are we going to take? Starfleet says, well, we've got, we mothballed the Enterprise D. Or no, because
that'd be crazy.
It got destroyed.
Yeah, it got smashed.
It got destroyed, but they can say, hey, we have an ambassador class starship that we've mothballed and it's in the museum and we don't have space for it. We can't give you the Enterprise E because that's on assignment.
Yeah, that's
but
elsewhere.
We have a ship. This is an important mission. We're activating your credentials. Captain, will you step back aboard a starship? Or they'll be like, hey, we've reactivated. Like they get to Starfleet and they start meeting and Starfleet goes, well, we've activated all of your ranks temporarily. You've been field promoted. And the characters can have various reactions to that. Worf just goes, I am upset. Like this is not acceptable.
Yeah, something like that.
Admiral goes, well, what are you going to do about it, Worf? Like you're the Chancellor of the Klingon High Empire. I can negotiate a treaty with you and get it done. He's like, very well.
Yeah, or something
like
just grouchy Worf.
Yeah. But like, so they all say, well, why you all out here for a reason. You know what that reason is. And then like one, like maybe Gates McFadden, like Dr. Crusher says, but we need a ship. And the Admiral kind of gets a smile on his face. I am aware of your needs for a ship. I have a solution. And he says, come with me. And he walks them in the slow, like you hear hints of the original theme. Dun, dun, dun. And the crew is talking, well, what kind of ship? What kind of ship do you think they got us? And then the door opens and it's a Galaxy class ship.
There you go.
And Picard just kind of goes, you didn't build her back. And the Admiral says, she's buried on that planet on Viridian 3. She's buried.
We saw her go down.
She's buried. She's buried. That is a graveyard we will never touch. We have this. We have this ship. It's a ship.
It's whatever.
We built it and we had like some excuses made that this ship was slated to be filled with cadets or this was going to be a cadet ship, but we decided that your mission was more important. We're going to give you you are all reactivated to your original positions, but we're going to give you maybe a cadet crew. You're going to have the strongest cadet crew we have because this is all we have to give you. And Picard says, I'm captain again. And the Admiral says, Captain Picard, the ship is yours. And dun 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 dun.
There we go.
And then like end scene credits. Next episode is Picard stepping aboard a Galaxy class starship, and they have to come up with a name. And maybe they call it the Enterprise D.
Well, I mean, it's complicated because we know for a fact by the timeline, Riker does get the next version of the advanced Enterprise, and from my knowledge, maybe you know better, and the Enterprise still remains the flagship, gets rebuilt again, and it belongs in someone else's hands. But I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, it's the Enterprise. Well, the Enterprise F has been introduced in Star Trek Online.
Okay.
The Enterprise E, I believe, is still around in canon filmography because that's the last time we've seen her on screen.
And that's with Riker, and that ship was a brutal. Because I got this. The only time I remember seeing it is when in a fight scene, and it was just wiping everything out.
Enterprise E is legit. But
there's your peaceful.
Yes.
Just
well, and that's the transition from the Borg into more warlike and conflict because they have all these enemies that are now coming out of the wood. So anyway, so credits. Yeah, and then the next episode 2 is stepping aboard the Enterprise and going, what shall we call her?
Yeah.
And maybe they come up with a way. Maybe they don't call it Enterprise. Maybe
Yeah,
they call it something else. Then it's a callback to an old time. And everyone takes their stations, is tugging on their
I
uniforms.
would say at this time, the Voyager's back, right?
Yeah, Voyager's back. So you could have Janeway even in there, kind of mixing it up. And so you could have, in
You could have had it like a good crazy callback where it's like, here's the Voyager.
oh, that could be kind of fun. But it'll be too
Because it
hard
came back and they did a bunch of changes and stuff to that
Yeah.
ship, remember?
Yeah.
So it would have been studied for a
I don't know.
long time.
I don't know where she's at.
Instead
in
of
canon.
sent back out.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
don't
like
know-
it could have been one of the things where they did do
Right.
that, where it's like, here's the Voyager.
Well, and you have to remember, there's also canon books. We
Yeah,
don't know. We don't know where the
okay.
Voyager ended up.
Because I haven't read any of the books at all.
I haven't either. But there's a whole world out there. But like the next episode is Picard stepping back onto the bridge, and
Yeah.
and you could have scenes of characters returning to their stations, and having those moments like where Troy sits in the counselor's chair again.
Yeah.
And has a conversation with Riker, or has a conversation with Picard, and just says, "I never thought I'd be back here again. I'm glad I'm here with you. I trust what you were doing with this mission, Captain." And Picard could be like, "I trust your feelings. I trust what you have what you sense.
Yeah.
I am glad." And then Worf steps up to the tactical and
It's like looking over the new stuff.
looks at it, like taps it, and then like hits it and be like, "I like my old station better.
Yeah, exactly.
What have they done?" And then Picard's just like, "Commander, you're gonna be fine. You just breathe."
Or even like what Geordi down in engineering being
Right.
like, what is all this?
"What have they done to my girl? What have they done to you?" And he just gets cranky and whatever. So like, there's so much possibility, right?
Yeah.
So much better stories. Instead of, spoiler alert, doesn't at the end of season 1 Picard become a robot? He
Oh,
dies.
they kill him and he becomes he's
An
a robot
android.
now, an android now.
It's
he's kind
dumb.
of like
yeah. That's the
Data.
look. My wife
So
is giving me a look of
confused.
confusion. It's dumb. But like, can you imagine?
Which
if we,
I only went and dig that up because you mentioned it sideways and like as a side comment one
And
time,
you
like
thought
they
I was
killed
joking.
him. Yeah, I thought you were joking. I'm like,
Nope.
what are you talking about?
No.
And then I went and read it. I'm like, what? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was terrible. That's why I'm.
I mean, that's why I have that facial expression when they brought back Q.
Yeah.
I'm like, the ending of
the
Next Generation was a good ending to have Q and his
Yeah.
species involved with humanity at all.
And Q returns in Deep Space Nine. He returns in Voyager, but in different forms and in different pieces.
Yeah.
The interaction with the Next Generation crew should have ended there. That
Yep.
was the end. He was done. He's like, "I'll come and check up on you from time to time," but that was like, okay, well, maybe he'll be back for a minute or two, but not anyway.
Because, I mean, the Q race is essentially just gods.
Yep.
They can do whatever they want.
Yep.
And there's almost nothing that threatens them.
Yep.
So they don't care.
Yep.
But they find, well, I mean, Q himself said because of that one episode, he found Picard interesting.
Yep.
Because he could have
Well,
done the easy route,
right.
so he chose the hard route. Why? And then
Yeah.
he tortures him for episodes and episodes.
What you could do in that redrawn first season that we're talking about,
Yeah.
as they're going to search out this thing and to solve this thing, whatever it is, the MacGuffin we decide on,
Yeah.
they get to it and they start investigating it, and various characters use their knowledge to give their perspective on it.
Yep.
And as they're starting to understand it, there's a mystery that just continues to unfold, and they can't explain it. They go, what is happening? Why? What is wrong?
And you can have one of those brilliant moments where like Picard is in his cabin, walks into his cabin or something,
And there's
and the shadows you have just hello, John Luke.
Yeah.
And it's like bam,
Yeah.
perfect way to bring him back in.
Yeah, and then at that point you could say, he's like, Picard can be like, "Is this you, Q? Have you
Yeah.
done this again?" And Q can be like, "Actually, no, it's not me. That's why I'm here." And it's like, what? Something more powerful than a Q?
Yeah, because didn't they have an episode where there was a rogue Q,
Yes.
and it Q needed something that was kind of like a wild card in it, and that was John Luke and the crew to
Yeah.
kind of tip the scales,
Yeah.
and so the Q collective can be like, "Hey, we got you, bad guy."
Right. So I think here it could be a situation of like, well, because even in Voyager they had a Q that went rogue, or a Q that was out, and so then I think he actually got released or something. But there's a way for it to be like not even Q can defeat this enemy, and
Yeah.
Q can be like, "This isn't an errant Q, this is an unknown." The Q continuum is in fear. We are all and you can look at Picard and say, "You're going to laugh at this, but you're our hope for this. You're our only
Or
hope."
something like that.
Like you. It
just seems weird.
Or he can be like, "I didn't want this, but the Q continuum, they wanted you.
Yeah.
You, a puny human, to help solve this. I said no."
Or something like
but
that,
here
yeah.
I am anyway, hanging out with the unwashed humans because they couldn't figure out how to solve
Well,
it.
I would say you wouldn't have Q actually say that to John Luke, because remember at the end they
Yeah.
kind of like Q evolved a little bit to actually like and appreciate John Luke's
Right.
brains.
Yeah.
and the way he handled
Yeah.
stuff. So he wouldn't say that, but he could make some comments. But
Yeah.
it's
But so much better story to be told.
yes.
And so my hope is with the
just-
third season that they're going to bring this crew back. Well, now there's already like a petition online, bring back Wesley Crusher. And I'm just like,
yeah.
God love Will Wheaton. He's done a huge lot for geekdom,
nerds everywhere,
For nerds
yeah.
everywhere with his efforts and his movies and his shows with the Big Bang Theory and like but there's just like you didn't include Will. You didn't include. I'm like. He wasn't a 7-season regular. He wasn't like his weight. Like, don't try and force something.
He showed up here and there.
Yeah,
and
that
was about it.
Yeah, he doesn't need to. No, Will Wheaton is doing just fine on his own. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Don't need to pull that boy in. Anyway,
Oh, man, we beat that horse pretty good,
We
right?
really did.
But the thing is, we got passionate, and that felt great. So it's like, yeah.
But so that's kind of the deal with good storytelling, and I feel like Star Trek right now needs some help. Star Trek 4 with Chris Pine is still mired in developmental hell. There's not the Quentin Tarantino version of Star Trek is still mired in confusion. So I don't actually know what we're gonna get out of all that.
Of the Kelvin universe, folks.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a hot mess. We already
They
beat
actually
that dead
call it
horse.
Kelvin.
They call it,
It's called
Oh,
it's
the
lame.
Kelvin timeline.
It's based off
really
of the
lame.
James Kirk's father was the captain of the USS Kelvin, which is when Nero invaded transformed space and time and broke the timeline so that everything after Jim Kirk's father's death, is a new timeline that has different events than normal Star Trek we're used to.
Yeah.
Welcome to
No.
J.J. Abrams' world. We don't like it, and we want it gone away. But
Yeah.
we're still stuck with it, so here we are.
Yeah.
So anyway, that has been... Well, we've talked about a lot today.
Yes.
Yeah, we were like, we started out pretty focused, and then we just kind of went all over. But it was a good conversation still.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, stay tuned for Mannequin next time, or in next episode that we record.
Yeah, next episode to record.
Looking forward to that. I don't even know.
I looked at the trailer and I just was chuckling a little bit. But I mean, it was thrown down like a gauntlet at the
Right.
two of us while
Yeah.
we were having breakfast.
And
this
we
morning.
don't resist a challenge unless we absolutely want to veto it. So we don't want to veto this one.
No, we're gonna step into it.
Yep, it's going to be
And-
great.
Yeah, I need to ask, are you going to
probably
rent
gonna
it or
cry.
buy it?
I'm going to rent it. I'm not making the same mistake
Well, remember,
twice.
our
Thank you.
challenger says she wants to watch it with us.
Okay. All
So
right. Well, she'll have to do the podcast then too.
yeah,
There's no hip.
we're gonna have to find time to make her sit down here and be like,
Yeah.
Who are you talking about?
Julie.
Ah, that'd be cool.
Julie will eventually be on this show, and her husband Dallas has already been on this show. All right,
Yeah.
well, I think we've exhausted the conversation. My name is Aaron.
I'm James.
I'm Vicky.
This has been Nerds by Screenlight. If you are interested in sharing challenges with us or engaging with the show, feel free to send us an email, adelayedteacher@gmail.com. The website for our production house is Create@Morgan. And this has been another episode of Nerds by
Yeah,
Screenlight.
take care, everybody.
Peace out. Word to your mother goose. Or something.
The raspberry flap of ours will be out in a moment. The kitchen is closed.
You've been listening to the Nerds by Screenlight podcast, presented by Create@Morgan Productions, located in Fort Morgan, Colorado, USA. For more information on our production house, other podcasts hosted here, and further details, please visit www.createatmorgan.org. You can find us on Twitter at the handle Create@Morgan. Create@Morgan is a school club at Lincoln High School, our alternative education campus in Morgan County. Our sponsor is Aaron DeLay, a language arts teacher at Lincoln. Send any feedback to adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our podcast.